Recently, I was working with a provider and we were working on a contract. It gets to the point where we're talking about reimbursement rates and they're asking for something egregious that's way outside of our guidelines. I just break it down and state, hey, this likely isn't going to happen. We have this open access portion of the plan. If you can see the patient, we will reimburse you, and then we can make sure everybody's taken care of. It ended up working fantastically. They said, all right, let's not do the contract. Let's just move forward with this open access portion and use it as a trial run. And things went smoothly and everything worked out.
Welcome to RBP from the Frontlines. My name is Stephanie Moore, and alongside Bruce Hansen, we'll be your hosts. These episodes of ClaimTalk will be dedicated to giving the audience a behind-the-scenes look at our member experience. With each episode, we'll introduce you to real people solving real issues every day. Join us as we highlight frontline workers supporting members through their healthcare journey on a network-free plan. What works, what doesn't, and what it takes to make these plans successful from their perspective. Today on the podcast, we have Brad Hansen and Austin Miller. Brad, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure, be happy to. Thank you. I'm Brad Hansen. I'm the Vice President of Provider Relations for ClaimDOC. I've been with ClaimDOC now going on about 3 years and have spent pretty much most of the last 30 years working in various capacities in healthcare, from hospital administration to clinic administration, and I'm also a recovering lawyer. So,
You did leave out of their youth baseball coach.
oh, youth baseball coach, much to my son's chagrin, and my former player sitting to the right of me here.
Brad's so old, he was my sixth grade baseball coach.
I did not know that.
You didn't know that?
But I was in seventh grade when I was. So, yeah, he was a star pupil. And fortunately, his professional baseball career blossomed from under my tutelage.
Yeah, I think I sat on the bench there for probably at least 6 years.
Yeah. Just
Really
like I did in
developing those
college.
skills.
Yeah. Visual learner.
Right.
Before we introduce Austin, I would like to step in and address the elephant in the podcast. And that's my shirt. And Austin's
And a little bit of
shirt.
Austin's shirt.
It's an homage to Austin's Fun Shirt Friday.
Yes, way back down at the downtown office, quite a while ago, about I'd say 5 years ago, I think we first started it. It was me and a few other people in the row that we had there, and
Who else? Say their names.
that would be Peter Sherpine. He really got the ball rolling there, but it's kind of a gradual growth thing. One more person would join, another person would join, and then by the end of it, at the downtown office, half the people were wearing a fun shirt, and it was a great icebreaker. It added to the camaraderie, and it was just a nice thing to do.
I feel like it's fallen off.
It has. After the pandemic, it stopped, and I've heard suggestions of trying to get it going again. So we'll have to try to get that going.
I like Brad's. Brad, you got a nice fun shirt going on.
It's funny you mentioned that. I used to have a healthcare team that I managed, and they all said, let's do a casual Friday and wear casual shirts. And my thing was, well, do you want casual healthcare on Fridays? And so any of the people that used to work for me in the hospital, if they would be rolling in the aisles right now.
This is exactly why I didn't like you as my baseball coach.
Finally, we found the reason.
Well, we
me
do
go down
have a
the
fun
list.
committee, so we can
That we do.
definitely float it by again to make it
Yeah,
more
yeah.
official.
Well, I guess I hijacked your intro. Why don't you tell us about yourself, just from the personal side, your interests, how long you've been here?
Yeah, so coming up on 6 years, actually. In June 25th, 2018 is when I started. So
And you can say that I referred you.
You
Say
did
that.
refer me, so thank you very much. It's been quite the journey. And I've just loved how much this company has helped me grow. And out of the personal side, I'm a huge fan of going to concerts and music and all that in general. And I think that's helped with the personal aspects of everything in the job. Because you got to be likable and personable with all these providers and members. So that's a part of me that
And that was kind of your your guys' thing.
that's
back in the
how I
day.
knew her. Yeah.
Yeah, and Steph used to leave on Fridays, and Ben and I'd be like, "We know you're doing that rave stuff."
That electronic music scene is
electronic
dangerous.
Darn kids.
No, yeah, but that is how we met. And as
Yeah, at a concert.
Yep, her and her husband. So yeah.
Very cool. She's referred a lot of people, all mostly good employees.
Mostly. You've grown to like me, Bruce.
It's taken a while.
But it is kind of funny because I give you a hard time, but back in the day, I used to have to, I deal with people coming to my office and they'd be like, Austin got promoted and he's here 20 minutes late every day. I'm like, he is. I'm like,
yep, I used to be bad about that.
And they're like, well, what about, I'm like, have you heard Austin on the phone? Have you heard how well Austin understands our program? Have you heard how he can talk to providers? Let's relax on the here 20 minutes late thing.
And actually, I have her to thank for my expertise in this because back then when we were training, any question I'd have, I'd go to Stephanie and she'd explain it very well.
Yeah, you had
Thank
a really
you.
good resource.
Exactly.
You grew up through the ranks, and that's really why Brad's here too, because his job is actually to kind of reel you in.
Oh, I've learned so much from Brad already.
The Austin
it's
Whisperer.
I'm the caretaker.
Reel it in,
Zookeeper, as the case may be. So yeah.
Well, and to frame up your role, I kind of view it. You started out as a member advocate, but now you're a senior analyst on the provider relations team. And I kind of view it as a firefighter, so to speak. Yes. If Austin's getting involved, we need fast action, we need access, and we need to figure it out quickly.
Absolutely. And I'd consider it the same thing. I feel like I'm a fixer for the most part. When something comes in for a VIP and something's gotten terribly awry, usually I step in, I call the provider, I ask what's happening, what can we do to fix this, and I just get a big overview of what's happening. Generally at that point, we can strategize and see what we need to do next. And at that point in time, it's either we have to analyze what kind of procedure is going to happen, the codes, the estimates. We work very closely with the client and to get that approval, and we're really good at doing it fast.
Yeah, so that could be the conversation goes exceptionally well with the provider. There's not a contract needed. It could be developing a single case agreement, a single patient agreement.
Absolutely. And most, not most of the time, but a lot of the time when we do reach out and we try to, figure out what they think's wrong with the program, we can wheel it back into them just accepting the open access portion. It's about explaining, that regardless, you're going to get paid at our reimbursement rate. At that point in time, we can work on the back end if we need to and just try to be accommodating to them, really.
Well, I pulled some statistics on your work. 158 single case agreements or single patient agreements last year. And based on the number of days you actually show up to work, that's one a day.
Yeah, you're right on that. Absolutely. No, that's a great statistic to have. And, sometimes those work really quickly. Sometimes it might take a week on those.
Yeah. No, you do a tremendous job. And I tease both of you, but it's really been Brad understanding your way of communicating, him helping elevate those conversations for you, but also giving the leadership team and executives some insight into the effectiveness that you bring to the role.
And I'm really appreciative of Brad being able to, kind of understand that and speak on my behalf of this stuff.
And I would just tell you, and that's a good metric, the 150 some single case agreements, but that leaves out all kinds of other things that Austin does. And what I would say is probably the most remarkable talent when I add them all up is his ability to access the resources that we have available to us, whether it's writing reports or it's looking at transparency claims data. You can just kind of hand it to us and say, let's figure this out. And he quickly gets through the information and synthesizes things to the point where now he can use it and really helps members, because he's not only doing that for us, but he's also doing that for providers to help them through their analysis. So he has a remarkable ability to do all of that and to remember conversations that he had back in 2018. Half the time I'm wondering if he's making it up.
You caught me, I'm busted.
But invariably, what he tells me turns out to be the case. It's in the notes, but he's got that at his fingertips. And that's for those cases where the heat is on. I mean, that's absolutely critical and irreplaceable. And so he's an incredibly valuable member of the team in the process.
Well, how do those those situations typically land on your desk. And I will say, Austin sits outside of my office, and it's like, and provider relations is out there, and it's almost like a revolving door of member advocates or account managers, senior relationship managers coming down to the provider relations area, which I think is cool. I love seeing the interaction, but I guess, how do they land on your desk, and what's driving? I know people don't want to just come see you. What's driving all the face-to-face conversation?
I think with my experience here of being here for nearly 6 years now, I know of a lot of circumstances that occur, and I love to give the advice into what we can do to solve whatever issue is occurring. Whether it's a member advocate or an account manager, just working together to strategize into what we'll be able to move this forward in the best way.
So that might not even be something that's landed on your plate as a situation to solve. That's just, they have it on theirs still,
yes.
And they're just coming down to you to share what they're working on.
And as we're kind of the last resort to try to get a contract, maybe they might come up to me and ask, what we should do before they end up sending the provider relations request, just so we can make sure we check all the boxes.
So it's kind of a natural evolution of Pave the Way. They're going through the Pave the Way portion, which is Steph's baby, Steph's bread and butter.
Absolutely. For the audience and that doesn't understand what Pave the Way is, we want to give a little bit of a highlight. And that's really our proactive provider outreach program. This is where we are, again, proactively connecting with healthcare providers before the members show up to their first appointment, before they show up to their surgery. So we have the opportunities to speak to the right people at that office. We have the opportunity to send it to Austin and his team for them to execute any necessary agreements for that appointment, that surgery to be successful. So Austin, can you tell me how your role fits in the member experience, how you affect that whole entire ecosystem, I should say?
Sure, absolutely. I am one of the more member-centric people on the provider relations team, because most of the work I do is, like we've already talked about, is single case agreements and single patient agreements. It is focused on that member receiving that care. So while we're working this, we're working in tandem with the member advocate, the service coordinator, the senior relationship manager. We're ensuring that we're getting all the information correct so that they can relay that information in a sense that the member will understand.
What do you think things would look like down there without Pave the Way program? Okay, we could start with down there, or we could start specifically on the provider relations team, because you catch overflow of issues that don't get solved. What do you think that, I think from both perspectives, what would the vibe and the work be like down there without Pave the Way, and what would your role be like without Pave the Way?
Well, if we didn't have Pave the Way, a lot more would be coming to me, that's for sure.
Yes.
If we didn't have that, I don't think any provider would absolutely understand what we do at all. It would obviously come to the stance where, of course, they need an agreement because we're considered out of network at that point in time. So, these member advocates, they do such a significant role in this company and really help.
I think if I had to come up with a visual for what I would think it would look like, it'd be like staring down the operative end of a fire hose as the water gets turned in for provider relations.
Exactly.
I mean, it is rapid fire a lot of days, and he and others on the team are working lots of different things at the same time. But if it weren't for Pave the Way and weren't for some of that proactive work already being done, oh my goodness. And it would be chaos for the members, most important.
Right. Oh, yeah, it would. Now, you were a member advocate,
Yes.
and you definitely appreciate the effectiveness of Pave the Way. You had your quirks
Yes.
that helped you be a good member advocate, not, probably not good notes if I had to.
Yeah. That's still something I work on, Bruce.
What do you think are the most important characteristics for a member advocate from top to bottom to just add that quality service we need and be effective?
Yes. I think being empathetic is probably the top quality. You got to understand and know what these members are going through. And that really helps you understand the urgency that may be required to get them the care they need. This is people's health. So, it's a big deal. And they really help with that. And I remember so many different cases where, you really had to just be the person that they talk to. And
That's
to
a
just
common
understand.
theme for sure.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
been really a common theme. Yeah.
So that's on the member advocacy side. You have that experience of connecting with members, and you've elevated over to this provider aspect, right? So tell me a little bit about the relationships with the providers. So they go through Pave the Way first, and the member advocates attempt to dispel any concerns that they may have about the plan, and then they reach you maybe. So how do you work on that relationship, and how do you get them to agree to work with the plan?
And I would say the good, the bad, and the ugly, because the intent of this whole forum is to let's share the reality of what exists, the friction, the problems, the challenges. So no holds barred in what you share.
Well, there's certainly a lot of frictions there, and a lot of these provider groups, they're so unorganized. It takes so long to find the right person who's going to be able to help you out.
Also a common theme.
Yeah, absolutely. Some member advocates might spend an hour or two trying to even find someone who can assist us here. So I think it's about finding that person and then just telling them what do you need? What can we do to make this happen? And then just continuously have a accommodating, streamlined process for them, make it as easy for them as possible, and to just, keep at it, ask them how their day is doing, and just, be personable.
Yeah, and that's probably something I think Brad has helped since coming on board, is the understanding of what the other side looks like.
Yes.
And let's not make this adversarial. Let's make this collaborative.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree.
And I would say he had Austin specifically, but our team really focuses on finding the right place at the right time to have the right conversation. Mm-hmm. And if it's an appointment today, well, there's probably somebody different than if we're talking about a global agreement that we're prepping for a client that's coming on board in 6 months. So he's done an outstanding job of really helping to identify that place. So we're always focused on less on contracts, more on access, and sometimes contract equals access, but sometimes we don't need a contract. And in lieu of that, it's a relationship. So one of the best examples I cite all the time, Austin has developed. There's a provider in the Southeast in a large metro area that he's developed a relationship with somebody on their end, and they just have this regular cadence of when patients show up. Do you want to talk about about that one?
I've been their contact for close to 5 years now. We've gotten to the point where we don't even need the member advocate to reach out, because they know they have something in their system that's going to flag it as, hey, we need to reach out to ClaimDOC. They email me directly with all the things we need right away. And then we do our work, we analyze really quickly, and it's usually almost an hour turnaround because we've developed this relationship.
Yeah, I joke that they kind of sound like an old married couple. Like they finish each other's statements, and they probably bicker like that too. But
but it is a challenging situation. The goal is to not rely on a contract.
Yes.
And that's got to be tricky for you to engage the other side when their minds are geared toward contract. How do you even start that conversation? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, once it comes to my desk, my first responsibility is to give them a call and just make sure that this is exactly what they need or want. Sometimes it's just about probing them with questions that, may not have been asked right away. It could be more or less of, say, hey, this patient's coming in. We don't have an agreement right now per se, but what will occur if they do come in? And, it's just getting a large overview like I was talking about earlier, and keeping everyone aware.
So Austin, you're in the area that's really driven off contracting, but you have a sense for why clients come to ClaimDOC and why they utilize it in terms of the financial benefits of savings. So you are dialed into the ultimate goal is access without a contract. Understanding though your job is to oftentimes get a contract and last resort. So just describe how you go through that process of balancing. We have these two dual factors here of sometimes access is a contract, but we also have to be very mindful of the client's spend.
Sure, yeah, and I have actually a specific example of this. Recently, I was working with a provider, and we were working on a contract. It gets to the point where we're talking about reimbursement rates, and they're asking for something egregious that's way outside of our guidelines. I just break it down and state, hey, this likely isn't going to happen. We have this open access portion of the plan. It just, if you can see the patient, we will reimburse you, and then we can make sure everybody's taken care of. It ended up working fantastically. They said, all right, let's not do the contract. Let's just move forward with this open access portion and use it as a trial run. And things went smoothly and everything worked out.
Very good. Yeah, and Amy Pellergan came over to my office. This is probably mid-January when we were in the heart of Pave the Way, and she was laughing. She's like, "You should have heard Austin. He was so mad about these clients wanting contracts." And it was funny. It's just this reminder of how you, at the end of the day, you understand what it's about and what we're trying to balance here.
And I wanted to go through that open access portion, as much as anybody. So less work on my plate.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's about a relationship. And in that case that he talked about, we worked on that. And ultimately what the provider wanted wasn't a contract. And we were,
they didn't know what they didn't know.
They didn't know what they know. And so they wanted to see, okay, do we pay claims timely? Do we get things done? Do we process things? Can we work through the issues? That's what they really wanted to know. It wasn't about a contract.
They thought they wanted a
contract.
contract.
So we'll see where that relationship goes now. I mean, so far so good.
And a big part of that is also no credentialing. People perk their ears up when they hear that.
And in keeping with the essence of building those relationships, I know that you guys just achieved a wonderful success with a large, I think it's Orlando-based organization that took many years to develop. We've been working with them for a very long time, and we hit a really nice peak with this organization. Can you tell us a little bit about that, the relationship and how it unfolded?
Sure. To start, like you say, we've been working on this for so long. I think a lot of it is that we were kind of pointing out flaws in their system of requiring a contract because they put their feet in the sand and wouldn't budge off that. And there are several situations where we did do the agreement, and we got to show them that their egregious billing is just so far outside of what anyone else would accept. I think just badgering them on that, continuing with persistency,
showing them data,
yes, the transparency data we now have due to the Pricing Transparency Act. And just working with them, staying persistent, and trying to be accommodating and make it as easy as possible. I think they finally saw the light, and now we have good deals that are within our guidelines.
Yeah, and it's like every other relationship. You continue to work it, continue to communicate, and Austin does a great job of keeping the providers in the loop and connected, and that's really kind of the goal for the whole group. Not just because of where ClaimDOC fits, but that really the long-term relationships what benefits the members at the end of the day.
And the person on the other side, they have a job to do.
Absolutely.
They have marching orders, just like you do. And so then it's about navigating
understanding each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to bring it back to the member experience, of course, as well. So you being a member advocate and having all that experience there, can you tell me about the most memorable experience that you have as working with members?
Sure. Yeah. There's this one situation because I was acting as a member advocate as well as provider relations for some time. There's this one situation where we had a case, and this kid is going to rehabilitation for drug problems. He is in there strung out and really needed care as soon as possible. So we immediately called the provider. We get them on the phone. We finished an agreement within probably 30 minutes to be accommodating with them. The provider comes back and tells us that, you guys saved this kid's life. If he wasn't going to get in and go back on the streets, he probably wouldn't be coming back. That's one of the ones that pulls at the heartstring. That's why we do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we really wanted this podcast to be about shining a light on the friction that truly exists in these plans, in these programs. We don't want to pretend that it doesn't exist. You'll get kind of stuffed suits like Brad, or maybe maybe a sales executive wanting to just gloss over the problems that exist. But the reality is they're there. The reality is also that if you put the work in, you can solve those problems and you can make these plans successful. So that our clients come to ClaimDOC for the Direct Access Plus program to get the plan savings. But really what drives us here, and you've probably seen the passion from Austin, is we get excited about helping members. And I think that's what makes our entire organization tick and what makes us different.
Absolutely. And we always say that member experience is the hardest element to achieve, but what really drives success. We can get in there, save the plan money, but if we don't take care of the member, the program falls apart.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So with that, I want to thank Brad and Austin for being on the podcast today, and also thank our audience for joining us for ClaimTalk RBP on the Front Lines. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.